Hey, thank you for joining us for Midweek Moment today. I am really excited to take a look at Esther chapters 4, 5, and 6. I hope you're enjoying reading that with your family. And I'll just start with this. If you are ever looking for a really good place to read in the Bible, these narrative texts are just a lot of fun. I don't know, well, you guys haven't read chapter 6 yet. You'll do that on Friday. But when I got finished reading Esther chapter 6, I was like, no, I need more. I need to keep going. I want to know what happens next in this story. And that's a really good thing if you're trying to establish a rhythm, a habit, a pattern of Bible reading. So I always recommend the narrative texts. 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles are really good for that. I also love the book of Joshua and the narrative events that happen in there. Obviously, the New Testament, the Gospels, the book of Acts are really, really good for that narrative environment. But if you're trying to establish a habit of Bible reading, I'm always going to recommend a narrative passage. The book of Esther is a prime example of that. There's so much that happens, and you kind of just crave to keep reading. So, as I was going through this, one of the questions that comes to my mind immediately is, and this is going to come across as a little irreverent, but I want to approach this from a biblically accurate perspective. So here's the question. Why does it seem like everybody wants to kill the Jews? And so that is the question, and it's relevant based on the passage that we're reading here in Esther. But if we look back historically, persecution against the Jews has been called by historians the oldest hatred. And so I made some notes here because I just want to go through the list of people biblically that really had the goal of destroying the Jewish people. So obviously we start with the Egyptians, the Assyrians, the Philistines, the Babylonians, the Amalekites, the Persians, the Seleucids, and the Romans. All wanted to destroy the Jews at some point in biblical history. We go past the Bible, we see the Russians, of course, the Nazis are the most famous example, and then modern day Islamic extremists. They all try to destroy the Jewish people. The question is, why? Well, we aren't going to go through all of that, but if we start with the Egyptians, we can see clearly that the Egyptians were threatened by the Hebrew people. And fear is a powerful motivator. Fear is a powerful motivator. You can make the argument that through the Old Testament, that warring and going to war and trying to conquer other lands was just a part of life, and that's true. But it's more than that. God had chosen the Hebrew people, the Jewish race, to be the people group through which the Messiah was brought into the world, and Satan wanted none of that. And so I believe that Satan was directly involved in the animosity and the hatred that developed towards the Jewish people throughout biblical history. And I believe that the plot against the Jews by Haman is an example of Satan's work. So it starts with Mordecai refusing to bow before Haman. Haman begins to hate Mordecai, and that hatred very nearly turns into genocide. And that leads to another valuable point that we can make. My sin, your sin, or your children's sin, it's probably not going to lead to the death of an entire people group, thank goodness. But sin always grows. When my kids were little, we loved to watch VeggieTales. And if it's the truth you want, we still enjoy watching VeggieTales today. Larry Boy is a personal hero of mine. But there's an episode of VeggieTales. It's called The Fib from Outer Space. And what happens is this fib alien crash lands on Earth. And the girl who discovers it kind of befriends this alien fib. But every time she tells a lie, the fib grows a little bit. And the fib encourages her to lie. And by the end of the episode, this fib from outer space is a city-destroying monster. And it takes the courageous hero, Larry Boy, to stop it. And it's just a fun episode, but it illustrates a valuable point that sin is always going to grow. There's no such thing as a simple, harmless little sin. And sin does that in our lives, right? And so working through that with your kids could be a valuable exercise. How could this thing that you perceive as a simple, harmless sin turn into something large and destructive beyond what you could imagine? And that could be a valuable exercise. And then from there, going back to the story of Esther, what it ultimately takes to confront sin on the city destroying level, or on the ruin my afternoon level, or I might get in trouble level, what it takes to confront sin on that level is courage. And that's what we see displayed in the lives of Mordecai, and especially in Esther. It takes a great deal of courage to go to the king uninvited. It could have easily meant Esther's death. But to confront sin, it takes courage. And you may not have to go before a king and risk your life, but it takes courage to admit you were wrong. It takes courage to ask for help. It takes courage to ask for forgiveness. It takes courage to go to someone and make it right when you've wronged them. And so I think that's a valuable lesson to teach, right? And so it may even help your kids feel strengthened to tell the truth if they've done something wrong. They know that they're going to get in trouble, that there will be consequences for their actions, but if they know you'll recognize the courage it takes to tell the truth, and you can call that out in them, that's a valuable thing. I heard Levi Lusko say years ago, if you call out the king, you'll get the king. If you call out the queen, you'll get the queen. And so the positive attributes that you see in your kids, call that out, and they will naturally want to produce those things. We have a motto in our family, and it just simply goes like this: being brave enough to tell the truth is what makes us leaders. And so the courage that it takes to tell the truth is always what it's going to take to conquer sin. So I know I've rambled a lot. Ivy has some thoughts on Esther chapter 6. So I'm going to turn things over to Ivy.
So Tony recently preached on Psalm 23. So as I was reading through these chapters, I had in the back of my mind the part of the psalm that says, "You prepare a table for me in the presence of my enemies, and you anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows." And I think Mordecai can relate. I mean, the guy
Absolutely.
was getting ready to be dead, but nothing and no one is more powerful than God. Like, nothing can ruin the plans that God has established for us. So it was really cool to see the Lord honor Mordecai right in front of Haman. And even more so, it was Haman that did it. Like, the Lord honored Mordecai through Haman. And I think that kind of shows God's humor. Like, that's,
absolutely.
That's so funny. But thank you for watching Midweek Moment, and we will see you next time.